You're watching Pyro Media Network.
I could be running or I'm chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive, life. If you hadn't run away every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. And you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play. And you couldn't handle that I had no ways. Around your mind tricks and your side chicks, I'm a winner, babe. And you didn't win this, it's a part of the game.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
VICKtorious. VICKtorious.
Hey. Happy Friday, Junior. Welcome to this week's episode of Dr. VICKtorious, where we explore the intersections of social justice, wellness, and what it means to show up fully human, especially from a Black perspective, because as you can tell, I'm Black. Hey, I am your host, Dr. Nicole Vick. Yay. I don't know. This week has been really interesting, especially today. There's some things that happened. I'll touch on a little bit later, but it's been a very interesting last few days. I don't know what's going on, but personally, everything is fine. I'm doing well, walking a lot more, doing a lot more movement and exercise. Today, my ankle was playing with me though. So the funny thing about I guess I wouldn't call this chronic pain. I'm just going to call it pain. I don't know if it's chronic or whatever, but this ankle, as I'm recovering, it does kind of what it wants to do. And let me just say this, if you have never bargained with your ankle and said, listen, almost in tears, like, listen, I need you to work with me. I don't know if you've ever lived, because that's what I had to do today. I'm like, all the things that I usually do to make my ankle sort of feel as good as it's going to feel while I'm moving around, it was not cooperating. And I was like, kind of starting to get scared, like, is this going to be my reality? And I was about to start crying. And I said, ankle, I need you to work with me. We need to work together. So I've been dealing with that and processing all of that. But there's some other heavy things that have been happening, across the country that I want to touch on later. But anyway, today I have a special guest, and this conversation came to be because 2 weeks ago I had an episode around homelessness, dignity, and choice. I don't know if you remember, but I was really moved by a story of a young woman that was living in one of the sewers here in Los Angeles. And what struck me was they interviewed her family, her mother and her sister, and they were talking about, we want help for her. And she's able to refuse that help. And so there's really no wiggle room, it seems, for that assistance to really make it to her. As long as she can say, I'm okay, I don't want it, and decline it, they're kind of left with like, I can't, I want to help her, but I'm kind of, my hands are tied, right? And so with that, I said, I need to talk to someone that understands this work, and is deeply engaged in the work and is an expert. And I was able to find that person in my network, and I was so excited. So This will be a thoughtful, respectful conversation that values both professional insight and the importance of lived experience in shaping more effective human centered approaches to homelessness. I think that this issue is so big and so pervasive, it almost feels like, how will we fix this? I am such a hopeful person that I'm like, we can, if we could make it, mess it up, we can fix it. And I feel like we can fix it. It's just, do we have the political will? Do we have the funding? Do we have the wherewithal to make that happen? So that's kind of where I sit with it. So I'm excited to have that conversation. But before we do that, we're going to go into the scroll stroll. And I'm going to be honest, the scroll stroll is a little happier than what's really happening in the world. And forgive me for that. We're going to actually probably end up touching on some of the stuff I'll bring up later in a future episode, because I'm like, oh, we have to have a conversation. So let's do this scroll stroll. And the first one, I was like, see, y'all be trying to rename stuff and like what? It's so Vogue magazine put out this idea of a cloud bob. And on Threads, everybody's like, what is a cloud bob? So for those of y'all that are, get your hair done and stuff, y'all know a bob is like a haircut, right? Where it's about maybe here, straight, sometimes curly bob. And it's usually, really cute look, right? But Vogue is like, no, we need a cloud bob. And then when they showed the picture of Tracy Ellis Ross, baby, you talking about an afro? Why y'all trying to rename things? There's a name for that already. It's afro. And so everybody on Threads was really upset about it. The only issue I had with this whole sort of like, everybody was like, what are you doing? I was like, but this came out in September of last year. Why are we just now arguing about a cloud bob today? I didn't hear nothing about this back when it actually was first posted in Vogue. So that was a little weird for me. And I'm not really clear what happened to like rile everybody up about the cloud bob on April 15th, 2026, when this came out in September. So that was strange. And I will say, why y'all renaming an afro to a cloud bob? That was really strange. And if I was Tracy Ellis Ross, I would say, take my picture up off of this, because y'all trying to play me and people looking at me sideways. This is an afro, y'all. So I had to post that because I was like, why do we rename things? Like, spa water, people are like aguas frescas. I'm like, why do we try to like zhuzh it up and make it sound a certain way when it is what it is and it already has a name? That's so weird to me. The next one, y'all know I'm on this AI thing. Like, I see stuff and I'm like, where did this come from? Why is this happening? And so this one really tickled me because this lady said, I asked Chat GPT to restore my third grade picture. Why would you turn me into Janet Jackson? I'm irritated. And so that to me is hilarious, because not only did it turn her into Janet Jackson, it gave her a new hairstyle, which is actually really cute. She got like a little cute little braided little ponytail in her head. But I'm like, they literally turned her into Penny for good times. So just be careful when you ask Chat GPT or any of the AIs to do anything for you. It might turn you into Janet Jackson or a celebrity, or something a little bit off kilter than what you actually asked it to do. That to me was hilarious, because Janet Jackson. I don't know. And then the last one, when this came out, I was like, all right, every time I'm always saying to myself, we can't possibly go any lower, and then we go lower. So I saw this and I had to post this one because it was funny, because Don Lemon's face is like, did Donald Trump really post a picture depicting himself as Jesus? And of course, when they asked the president, and he was like, no, I thought I was a physician. I ain't never seen no physician dressed like that. That's usually how they be having Jesus, with his little outfit on, with the little, robe and the thing. So I don't even want to get into the symbolism of this, because I think there's so much that could be said about it. But it's definitely a strange situation. And again, these scroll shows, I prepare these sometimes a week and a half in advance, and stuff just happens sometimes the day of when we go live. And I'm like, I don't have time to switch things around. But I will say this, I want to, I can't act like this hasn't happened. So today, I'm going to read it so I don't make a mistake. Today, former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax killed his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, and himself in a murder-suicide at their Virginia home today. The incident occurred during a contentious divorce while their two teenage children were present. You got to think about how disconnected you have to be, or can't even think of the word, to do something like that and your children are in the home. In 2019, Fairfax was publicly accused of sexual assault by two women. This has been all over social media. It's been all over threads. There's been some interesting conversations. I believe he is a member of a fraternity. And so some of the posts that some folks were posting were like, "Oh man, he was a great guy. I can't believe it. Oh, and so and prayers for his children." This man killed his wife. And it was like that whole part was like missing from some of the postings that people were sharing. And so there's this whole conversation about femicide and like, wait a minute, what is going on? So all that to say, I do want to have a conversation about this as a podcast, as on a future podcast, as an entire episode, because this is really interesting, because this is not the first time this has happened in the last 2 weeks, right? And of course, we have a long history, unfortunately, of this happening in our community. I was also on threads and someone said, Black women, talk to me about your experiences about Black women in your family being killed by their partners. And it was so many people responding about their experiences. So this is a huge problem. And so as we go to commercial, I do want, if I'm my producer, I know this, I kind of threw this out here. Please, let's have a moment of silence for Dr. Fairfax. She was a dentist. And a moment of silence for her, and a moment of prayer for her two children who now have no mother and no father. So let's go to commercial and have that moment of silence.
Hey, it's Pastor Kim from It's Just Kim Live Show, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
This is Tammy from Tammy's Take, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
And we are back. Yay. I always forget Cyrus being here commenting, and I'll be so into what I'm doing. I don't see it, but I get the Cloud Bob. Yes, they did do the same thing when it came to cornrows. I think a couple of times, like there was the time, the OG time, I think when Bo Derek, I think is the actress that wore them. They were like, oh. And then recently, a lot more recently, I think one of the Kardashians or someone had called them something else. And I was like, what? So they be renaming stuff and doing things. I don't understand why they do that. Leave it alone. It's Afro. That's what it is. So let's go ahead and pivot though. All right. I have a special guest coming. I'm going to read the bio and then we're going to bring her on. So I'm so excited to have Mrs. Tiffany Duvernay-Smith on tonight. She is a revolutionary, trailblazing systems reform champion. And you know, we need to be reforming these systems because, as I've always said, they're not necessarily designed with us in mind. But that's another conversation for another day. She's a leader in the lived experience movement, another important thing we're going to talk about tonight. She embraces a deep calling to advocate from her own experience and to lift the voices of people who have not been heard within her home community of Los Angeles and across the country, okay? Nationwide. Tiffany believes that her life lessons should not and do not stop with her. She has a passion for sharing the skills and wisdom gained through her healing journey and through her experiences of homelessness, housing instability, domestic violence, and self-empowerment. She is a captivating speaker, writer, and storyteller who uses those skills as an ally, mentor, and storytelling coach for other advocates. As an expert through independent study in lived experience and advocacy, she knows the importance of building relationships, networking, being informed, and educating others. She also embraces the values of healing, therapy, and having fun. Tiffany seeks out opportunities to advocate around elevating people with lived experience to leadership, preventing and ending homelessness, domestic violence survivorship, criminal justice reform, equity, wellness, and mental health stigma reduction. She has received multiple awards, which well-deserved, I am sure. So I just want to bring her on because if I keep reading, I mean, shoot, we ain't gonna be able to talk to her because her bio is stellar, top tier. Let's bring Tiffany on. Hello.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm see, I can't even talk because I'm like, I don't know. So much going on in the world that I don't know. It's overwhelming, but I'm so happy to have you here. And I can't remember, and I always say this, so everybody in the audience knows this. If I can't remember when and where I met you, that means a good thing to me. That means you're already sort of, to me, considered part of my family because I have no idea when we met and why or how. But we just, hey, do you remember?
I've tried to remember the same thing. I think it wasn't my first time seeing you, but I think I went to something that Kelly invited me to. And I don't know if it was La Pie, but I went to something. And then I also showed up with her at a boutique. I think we rented the space and we're selling. So I have a couple of your dresses. It was like $15 for that, $15 for that, $20 for that. And so that was the most I interacted with you. So that was like our real first meeting.
Yeah. I remember the boutique. That was, I can't think of the Runway Boutique, Fatima's place. I remember that. I was selling my clothes. And it's so funny. I'm still selling clothes. I'm always buying clothes. And then I'm like, okay, it's time to purge. So, and I also
want to collaborate. Now I want to get together because I have some purging and I know there are other women that do as well.
Well, let's do that. We might have to make
that. Do a plus size purge.
That would be
plus size amazing. Professional purge.
That would be amazing. I think we should do that. We should do that. That would be great. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I think one other time I remember you caught up with me. I was selling my book. I was at the Crenshaw Mall outside selling my book, and I saw you, and we took a picture together. I meant to give it to the producer, and I forgot. That was a few years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. All right. So say it again.
Push through.
Yes. See? Yes, it is pushing through. Yep.
Pushing through.
Yes. And I do have a push through though. So to be fair, I have a pushing through and a push through. See, look, the producer said, let me put it up on the screen. So talk, I read your bio, of course, so everybody knows to some extent what you do, but can you tell me and tell the audience a little bit about the work you do in the communities that you serve in your work?
Okay, so my work is very specific. There's 2 lanes, and so I have my personal advocacy lane where I advocate on a city, county, state, and federal level around all the things. And I served in like advisory roles on a board or a council or something like this. And then public speaking and workshops at conferences and things like this. And then on my job, I feel like I work with my peers. I have it's a blessing to me to be able to work with my peers and serve them and treat them how I want to be treated and try to get the best for them. Especially if I receive the best, it lets me know what's possible for them. And so this is an advisory body that is made up. So this is my day job. So I work at LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority. I'm the coordinator for their Lived Experience Advisory Board. There's 11 people who are formerly homeless. And then, of course, in their lives, they're impacted by other intersectionalities, and they've shown up as different places in the homeless sector, whether as a veteran, as a parent homeless with their children, family, something like this. And so their representation is, they represent the homeless population across Los Angeles to an extent. This is a small number, right? But from the different areas and pockets around Los Angeles County, which is very huge, almost constituents here. And their role is to advise the system, basically. So LAHSA specifically, internally, and then externally would be the city and the county, because LAHSA is a joint power authority, so they have access to this advisory body too. And what do I do? I can say something that we're working on right now is being sure they're educated on what's happening in the city and county right now, because there's big changes in the homelessness sector. There's about to be layoffs at my organization. And then there's been a lot of funding cuts since the beginning of 2025. And here we are. So I may be one of 250 people getting laid off April 30th with the 60-day notice. Let's see, it's about 250 people. So the changes that are going on, because there's just shifts in the sector for various reasons, I would say it impacts the workforce.
Yeah,
a great deal, and it impacts participants because of funding cuts or people needing to move where they thought they were finally stable and able to breathe.
Wow.
So that's kind of what's going on in the system.
In the system. So, and I feel like it's so interesting. Well, interesting, sad, angering that some of the services and things that we need the most are almost always cut first. Like, well, can't afford to do that. And then it's gone. And it's like, wait, we haven't even touched or even scratched the surface of what the need is in our communities. And we maybe, like you just said, maybe we've gotten to the point where some people are stabilized, they're housed, and they're doing well. And it's like, well, oh, well, now the funding is gone and now stuff just starts to disappear. And it's so, so very unfortunate. And, I'll say this, a lot of it has to do, and I know there's different reasons why, but at least from my experience in the line of work that I'm in, A lot of it is due to what's happening at the federal level. Well, you can't say this. Well, anything that's related to diversity or anything that's related to this, you can't, we're taking that funding away. And so now people are like, well, how are we supposed to pay for the services that people actually need? And so all these things are really playing a role in dismantling a lot of the very things that are really needed to help our communities thrive. From your perspective, you talked about working on homelessness issues. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about homelessness in general? What do people, I'll share one that I've heard, and then one thing that I heard, and I actually sat on the commission for the health commission for the city of Los Angeles, and someone came in to do some conversations around the statistics. And I often hear people say all these transplants coming from other parts of the country come to LA, and that's why people are homeless. And the guy said, actually, these are your neighbors. These are locals. These are natives for one reason or another. Their job or something happened, a health issue in the hospital bill, whatever it is that caused them to lose their housing. And so that, I think, to me is a huge misconception. They think people coming from Ohio on a bus, a one-way bus ticket, that's what's causing the problem. And I think it's not quite what people think it is. So I'll ask you, what are some of the biggest misconceptions about homelessness in your experience?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's best for people to be at an understanding that everybody is an individual and has their own individual experience. So even if you get together a group of people, for instance, I'm part of a group of advocates who were homeless directly related to domestic violence relationship. But we still have our own individual stories that are completely different. But then there's also so much in common and a bond, because of it.
Yeah.
And so misconception is why people become homeless. So just using myself as an example, I got fired from my job. I was in this toxic relationship. My unemployment ran out at the same month that my rent was going up $100. So I was already trying to figure out what I was going to do, let alone that. And so this is how I got evicted and became homeless. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't. So I would say directly related to this DV, toxic, unhealthy, dysfunctional, abusive relationship that I was in. Because I'm 36 being homeless. And I left home when I was 17 and did fine for 20 years. So, and then what, right?
Yeah.
I also say, like, if I think about people have just the foster care system in the background without a plan after becoming 18, if the parents are like, you need to bounce, And so the system is there. The system is doing its best to catch these people. And so the systems fail. I would say other myths is gonna be mental health, is gonna be substance use. You can also look at those as coping skills. How traumatizing is it to lose your home, your livelihood, whatever's going on? People turn to substances, cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, worse, right? You imagine developing some depression. You're gonna be sad and trying to figure out your life. All right, anxiety, because the sense of safety is gone, the powerlessness is there, right? Maybe some PTSD. And so if you weren't dealing with it before, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you are now. And so this is where mental health stigma reduction comes in. It's just compassion. And then I'm just going to tell you something. This all comes down to, this is my new belief, this all comes down to mercy. Mm-hmm. And so changes in any type of policies or program because of funding cuts. Who's cutting funding? If this is a crisis that's getting worse, who's cutting funding? This is a person that doesn't have mercy.
You know, something that you just said, mercy is huge. I hear that. We have a host on another podcast on this network that talks about empathy. And so I hear empathy, mercy, that there's a lack of that when these decisions are being made in regards to funding. And the one other thing you said, and so I remember I told you when I called you, I said, now I have questions prepared, but sometimes you might say something and I'm like, oh, catch on to it. You said safety. And I remember being in a training years ago around people that are substance use disorder. And I think the name of the training is called Seeking Safety. And so you literally just said.
Now you had no idea. You had no idea. So when I was attempting to leave that abusive relationship, I was in that 5.5 years. When I was attempting to leave, I got some therapy. My primary care physician recommended me for 12 sessions of depression therapy. And so this lady recommended me for PTSD therapy. So I had 40 sessions with the PTSD therapy, and she went through the Seeking Safety workbook with me, like one chapter every 2 weeks. I had 40 sessions with her. Then I went and did it in a group with people. Then I got the training to support someone else in seeking safety in a group or individual. And then when I met my husband, we went and did it again. And now we both have the seeking safety certificates. And I'll say my main thing with seeking safety. So let me explain seeking safety. Seeking safety, the purpose is linking PTSD and substance use. But I have shifted that language to any trauma and any unhealthy coping. That's how in tune this woman is. Let me tell you, I'm like, did she write that book for me? Like, she has definitely had some experiences just to be able to articulate it and have it, coming through. And I'll just say the main theme of that is healthy self-nurturing. So, we Black folks, we come from drama and trauma. A lot of us, it just so happens. And the way that we're going to get through our life is by nurturing ourselves, healthy self-nurturing. And this is one of the main things in the seeking safety.
This is amazing. Like I said, it just popped to mind, and you're like, yeah, I'm like, wait, and we did not have this conversation about seeking safety beforehand. This was me just talking because I heard you say safety, and I'm like, hey. I'm
going to tell you, I'm on the healing tip. So I went on such a healing journey. Like, why did I pick this person? I don't want to do it again. Trying to just figure it all out. I would say the largest part of my journey is spiritual. There's warfare going on all the time. And I have learned how to navigate through that. If anybody wants to talk about the Bible and, that lifestyle, I'm available for those conversations as well.
Like, you have such a wealth of knowledge and insight.
How did I get through? How did I make it through? You understand what I'm saying?
How did you push through?
How I got over. How I got over. Praise. That's how I got over. How I got over. Praise. There has to be some kind of spiritual component to make it through these times, right? And I just say, people are navigating homelessness and don't know what to do. I'm just going to say the main issue is prevention. They call it turning off the faucet. If you want to end it, prevent it.
Yes.
And so
that's a very
new efforts. But if you can stay where you are, if you can find the agencies that are connected to prevention and stay put, this is your best bet, is to just never
Yep.
Never into that space.
That's a very public health approach, prevention, right? To stop something from happening in the first place. So I love that you even tied that in. That's very much what the public health way of doing things is. How do we keep it from happening in the first place? And we're about to wrap up because I'm like, this conversation was so good, but I want to ask you about supports. Like we talked about the seeking safety and you talked about therapy, but like, what does real support look like in helping address the homelessness issue? And I know, we haven't talked specifically about this, but the reason why we're having this conversation is about that young woman that was living in the sewer. And I know they talked to her mom and her sister, and they were like, we want to help her. We've been trying to help her, but because she's able to refuse help, and I don't want to get into this issue of whether or not she's allowed to refuse help or not. She is an autonomous person and has the ability to speak for herself. But I guess, what would support look like for her, for her family? Like, how do we make sure that people that are homeless get the help, the real, true help that they need to get back on their feet? What do you, in your opinion?
I want to address the person who may be resistant. There's something called assertive engagement, and this is being consistent. You're not aggressive with the person, and you're always engaging the person, and this is building relationship, trust, and things like this. So this may lean more toward like a case manager, right? But with family, these family dynamics can be very tricky, and sometimes this person is traumatized because of the family and doesn't really want anything to do with them, even though the family is reaching out. And so you never know what the dynamic is, But all you can do, and I'm going to say this through the lens of like a survivor of domestic violence who helps other people, is, it takes someone like 7 incidents to say, okay, I'm going to leave for real this time. This is like an average. But you don't ever bash the person because they went back. You'll just always be home, always be the safe person, always be merciful with them, right? Have compassion and empathy with the person for when they're ready. And the other thing about supporting people, I would say hope for people. My story recently changed from homeless to homeowner, and it's not something I could have ever imagined. Let me tell you this. And some people have entitlement issues, or they're gatekeepers. So I'm in a helping position. I'm going to give you at least a little bit of a hard time, but it's not our place to do that. And we have to treat people better than what we've been treated. We know what we know, but we have to just treat people better than what we've been treated. Some folks need extra love, extra care, extra money, extra hope, extra. So we have to constantly replenish ourselves so that we can be giving, because people really need us to show up, authentically with care. Let the people who don't need a trauma-informed class be the one doing the work. Who don't have to get trained repeatedly to care about somebody and to not be racist and all this kind of stuff, then this is not your line of work. You're just hurting people.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Very good point. We're going to go to commercial, Tiffany, and then I want to come back. We're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to come back because I know you wanted to talk about, was it a fundraiser that you're working on?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to commercial, and I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes to do that, and then we gotta go.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, how y'all doing? Real quick, this is Daryl Walter, host of the Daryl Walter Show. I know. And you are watching Pyro Media Network.
What's going on, y'all? It's Kwame Speaks from Kwame Speaks Live, and you're watching Pyro Media Network.
we're back. All right, let's talk. Go ahead and share about the fundraiser, and then we go.
So I consider myself one of the leaders of the lived experience movement, and always fighting for these people, right? My people. And so I decided to start a nonprofit called LA Cape. You know, you put on your cape and save the day, so to speak. I know people are taking their capes off these days. I haven't done that yet. And I have, other people putting their capes on. And so this is Los Angeles Consultative Authority of Personal Expertise. So when you want to engage the consultants with lived experience for research or policy or partnering, then you come to LA Cape. And this is a very, very brand new launch. We are having our first fundraiser and house welcoming party in a few weeks. That is invitation only because only so many people can fit in my house and backyard. And then we have a fundraising campaign just to go along with that in general. And so we will be co-designing with people who have lived experience. Right now, the focus is for only homeless advocates who are doing their best to navigate these systems changes and be respected as consultants, decision makers, partners, and things like this. So the description is that I am creating a new table. So sometimes you bring your chair and sometimes you just create a new table. And that's exactly what it is. I would love and appreciate your support. So we're on Give Butter. I don't know if Kwame's posting stuff or things are popping up. I wasn't paying attention, but it's givebutter.com/LA Cape fundraiser, but it's LA-Cape-fundraiser, not /dash.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And he posted it up so people will be able to see it in the replay. And so we're really excited about it. Thank you so much, everyone. This was Mrs. Tiffany Duvernay-Smith, who did such a great job with giving some wonderful gems about how we can approach the homelessness issue. And I think giving us that nuance about the importance of lived experience. All right, y'all know we are coming to the end of this. Coming to the end of this week's episode. Can't even talk. You all know where to find me. I have a website, www.NicoleDVick.com, with all the things on it. You can buy my books. I have 3. Pushing through, finding the light in every lesson. Am I okay? I don't think I am. Push through 52 weeks of light in tough times. And the latest, which is an anthology called Triumph in the Trenches, is 20 other authors in this book. I have 1 chapter and there's 22 other chapters. And this is about helping Black folk navigate the workplace. I'm really big on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn most of the time. I also have my Instagram account is Dr. VICKtorious. I think that's it. We will see you next week. And like I said, as promised, I want to bring on some folks to talk about what's been happening with femicide. I want to talk about this lawsuit against the State Department of Public Health around Black infant health. I'm like, y'all playing in our faces. I don't understand what's going on. So there's a lot happening. But we'll see you next week, and I'll bring you, the content that y'all want to see, and maybe some content that you didn't know you wanted to see. And that's that on that. Thank you, Mrs. Tiffany Duvernay-Smith, and everyone else. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you for watching Pyro Media Network. For more information, please visit pyromedianetwork.com.